The NCAA tournament is here, and the number one seed in the South region is the best defensive team in college basketball this season, the Houston Cougars. In today's video, I'll break down the entire South region, give the best bets, as well as my favorite Cinderella pick and my prediction to win the entire region. Hey, how's it going, everybody? It's RC Maxfield here for the Back to 12 podcast. And if y'all are new to the channel, well, we're a predominantly Texas Tech YouTube channel, but we will be talking extensively about this year's NCAA tournament. So if you want to join the most engaging Texas Tech community and one of the most engaging Big 12 communities on YouTube, do these three simple steps for me. Like the video, hit that subscribe button, and turn on that notification bell to stay in the know on all things March Madness right here on the Back to 12 podcast channel. I mentioned interactive, engaging. Well, I want y'all to predict it for me. Who do you think will win the South region? Let me know down on the pinned comment below, and later on in the video, I'll let you know who I have winning this one in terms of the South region. And do I go the chalk route? Maybe I pick my Cinderella? Well, I'll let you know here in just a little bit, but let me hear from you guys first down on the pinned comment below who you have winning the South region this year. All right, let's get into, what we're talking about here, the South region, right? And this is from March Madness Men Basketball over on Twitter. You can see the whole region right there in front of you, and we'll go from top to bottom, and then we'll talk about the schedule. So South region, we've got Houston against Longwood. You've got Nebraska and Texas A&M as the 8-9 matchup. That is one of the more interesting matchups in the entire first round, regardless of the region, let alone the South region. And then, speaking of one of the best matchups in the entire NCAA tournament in the first round, Wisconsin versus James Madison. We might be talking about James Madison here in just a little bit when it comes to Cinderella teams in the video. And then you got the Blue Devils of Duke. Then you've also got Vermont. You've also got Texas Tech up against, well, arguably the hottest team in the NCAA, in the NC State Wolfpack. The Wolfpack won 5 games in 5 days out in Washington, D.C. to secure a spot in the NCAA tournament. They are now an 11 seed in the NCAA tournament. They were a 10 seed in the ACC tournament. That's how historic of a run the Wolfpack went on in their conference tournament. Then you've got the Kentucky Wildcats led by John Calipari up against Oakland. You've got Florida, a team that went to the SEC title game only to lose to Bruce Pearl in Auburn. You have a very interesting play-in game in terms of the 10 seed there in Dayton against Boise State in Colorado. Then you have Marquette against the Hilltoppers of Western Kentucky. You kind of look at the top part of the bracket here, and Houston is set up pretty nicely. If you ask me, it almost feels like they've got a better draw as the number 2 overall seed in the tournament compared to the number 1 overall seed in UConn. Houston, I think they match up well against Nebraska or Texas A&M. That being said, if that Houston team plays Texas A&M, that is going to be a blockbuster matchup, a must-watch game. There's no doubt about it, and honestly, the same can be said if Nebraska wins. Now, the team that I am most interested in watching in this, in terms of the whole entire region, is Florida, because I think they can make a little bit of a run. A 7 seed for Florida feels a little low to me after what they did in the SEC tournament. They're getting hot at the right time. They had to win 4 games in 4 days. You could tell they kind of ran out of gas when it came down to the SEC championship game. I think they match up well against Marquette. I think they're going to be driven after losing one of their best players to a fractured left leg in the conference tournament game for them. They're a team to watch out for. I also think it's really interesting that 6, 11, 3, and 14 area of the bracket, because, again, you look at it, I think it's fair to say Kentucky is probably the best team of that group. Obviously, they're the 3 seed, right? But Texas Tech, they might be getting some guys back in terms of injuries, whether that's Darion Williams or Warren Washington, a big there. But NC State, as I mentioned a little earlier, going through the initial preview, they are arguably the hottest team in the country right now. 5 wins in 5 days. They have the dynamic duo of DJs there, and DJ Horn and DJ Burns, guys that just offensively make that engine go for the Wolfpack. That's an interesting matchup. But let's run through the first round in terms of what we're looking at schedule-wise here, and we'll keep this up there so you know. It'll start in Pittsburgh on Thursday for this South region. It'll be Kentucky versus Oakland. Tip-off is scheduled for 7:10, and then Texas Tech will face off against North Carolina State right after at 9:40, an estimated tip-off. Everybody else in this region will play on Friday, March 22nd. You can start with Marquette in Western Kentucky. That will take place in Indianapolis. Tip-off is scheduled for 2 p.m. You have Florida in the winner of Boise State and Colorado set for 4:30 as an estimated tip-off time. That game will take place in Indianapolis as well on CBS. Moving over to Barclays Center in Brooklyn, Duke versus Vermont is scheduled for 6:50 tip-off on CBS, with Wisconsin and James Madison to follow with a 9:40 p.m. tip-off scheduled for CBS. You go down south and you head to the FedEx Forum right there on Beale Street in Memphis. You got Nebraska and Texas A&M scheduled to tip off at 7:50 p.m. Eastern Time on TNT, with Houston and Longwood to follow at 9:20 p.m. on TNT. Now, Houston is the heavy favorite in this matchup. In terms of, when I say matchup, I mean region. They have the second best odds to win the NCAA tournament at plus 500, according to MyBookie. And right now, you can go over to mybookie.com and, well, you can use the code BACK212 to get a welcome offer of up to $1,000. It's the perfect place to bet on March Madness. They have great odds and just a great place to bet regardless of where you are. So go check out MyBookie. I'll leave the link and the promo code down below so you can get the thrill of betting on March Madness. Now, the Cougars are one of the best teams defensively in the Ken Palm era, dating back to the early 2000s. They are really that good, and they also have a top 15 offense as well. Now, when it comes down to my Cinderella, because let's face it, you're filling out a bracket, you want to find a Cinderella. You want a team that is potentially, a 10 seed or higher that can make the second weekend. I've got one for you. It's James Madison. James Madison, they have the longest current winning streak in the country at 13 games. They are one of only 4 teams in the NCAA tournament to have 30-plus wins. They are led by Terrence Edwards Jr. and TJ Bickerstaff. They are a fast, fun, just super fast-paced team that is fun to watch. They can beat you by shooting the three. They shoot a really high clip as a team, and they also have guys that can win down low in the paint if needed. They love creating turnovers and getting out in transition and getting as easy baskets as possible. The Dukes will be a popular Cinderella team. I'm not going to be breaking any news here. I understand that. This might be a chalky one if we're being honest, but they are really good, and they are going to be a chalky Cinderella pick for good reason. This team went up to Michigan State up there in East Lansing. First game of the year, beat Michigan State, a team that was ranked in the top 15 at that point, okay? Now, obviously, we know Michigan State fell off a little bit, but that win by James Madison really escalated and just started to propel them on a trajectory to where now they're coming into the NCAA tournament, as I mentioned, one of only 4 teams with 30-plus wins, okay? They're really good. They are a really good team, are the Dukes, and they're going to be one to watch for sure. Now, as for my pick to win the South, it's kind of chalky. It's Houston, though, but watching the Big 12 all year long, outside of a week stretch where Houston lost at TCU and at Iowa State, Houston has been the best team in this conference, and it's really not that close. I understand what happened when it came down to, the Big 12 tournament and them just absolutely getting shellacked by Iowa State. I can't see that happening again with Coach Sampson there, and also arguably a top, 3 player in the country in Jamal Shed. He was not only the Big 12 player of the year, but also the Big 12 defensive player of the year. The guard play that Houston has will propel them well into the second weekend, I think, and have them firmly in the mix to make the Final Four there in Phoenix. And as we all know, guard play in March Madness is the biggest reason teams win. Houston has really, really good guards, whether that's Sharp, Cryer, and then obviously the aforementioned Jamal Shed. They're really good. They are really, really good. And I didn't even mention Jawan Roberts, one of the best bigs in the country as well. Coach Sampson has an absolute unit of a team this year, and I think that they end up in Phoenix in the Final Four and win the South region. But let me hear from you guys one more time. Predict it down on the pinned comment below. Who do you have winning the South region? Are you going Houston? Maybe you're going Kentucky. Maybe you're going, an FAU route like last year where you're picking a really big Cinderella. Let me know down on the pinned comment below who you have winning the South region this year in the NCAA tournament. And one more reminder, if you haven't already, be sure to like the video and hit that subscribe button. And maybe most importantly after that, turn on that notification bell to stay in the know on everything March Madness all tournament long right here on the most engaging Texas Tech YouTube channel and one of the most engaging Big 12 communities on YouTube. Of course, I'm talking about the Back to 12 podcast channel.